everybody. Go ahead and we will get started now. Roll call, please, Patty.
Commissioner Sholay,
Here.
Moyer,
Present.
Knack, Carmen, McCaffrey,
Here.
Whitehouse,
Here.
Sarter.
Here. Any additions or deletions from the agenda? No, sir. Thank you, Mr. Byrd. Anyone from the public wish to speak on any non-agenda items? Okay, can I have a motion to approve the minutes from the September meeting?
So moved.
Second. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Sholay,
Yes.
Moyer,
Yes.
Carmen, McCaffrey,
Yes.
Whitehouse,
Yes.
Yes. Okay, we have some old business on the agenda tonight. We've got the continued site plan from 8121 First Street. Included in the staff packet, there were a couple of options for the motion tonight. I'm going to give it over to Cody and just kind of run through those and explain a little bit in detail before we vote on it.
Sure. Thanks, Commissioner Sarter, Chairman Sarter.
Excuse me, sir. Could we, the record note that Linda Knack is now present at, I don't know, 6:37?
Thank you.
You're saying she's late?
6:31.
We'll call her out.
We will make the note. And Commissioner Knack, we just did roll call and the minutes were just approved. Chairman Sarter, yes, thank you. The item on your agenda tonight was originally presented to the Planning Commission on August 7th at a regular meeting. The application is for a site plan review for 8121 First Street. And following presentations and some discussion on that item, there were some items that still needed to be clarified. Staff had recommended approval subject to conditions, and the conditions raised some questions by the applicant that required some additional coordination. There's still additional time needed to make that coordination take place. And the applicant, Ms. Souls, is requesting a continuance of the application. At the time we published the agenda report, we had not yet had a final communication with the applicant to clarify a timeline for the desired extension. And so we now know, we left it blank in the agenda report along with all of your possible motion options. And we now know that the applicant is seeking a continuance to the December 4th regular Planning Commission meeting. In your staff report, we did include a reference link to the August 7th meeting packet materials, so you could review those if you desired. And not knowing a timeline, we did include a whole range of motion options that left it for all. The Planning Commission could take any number of actions on a motion that's laid on the table. And I'll just summarize those briefly. You can approve a site plan as it was presented, and the reference materials were hyperlinked in your packet. You can approve a site plan subject to conditions. Conditions were identified in the August 7th meeting packet, and those are the items that the applicant has requested some additional time to continue coordination on. You can also postpone to a date certain. We left that motion option blank, and then we now know December 4th is the desired date. A motion to postpone indefinitely was included as an unknown. Essentially, postponing indefinitely would be a final action on the item, but it's neither an approval nor denial. It just simply says we're not going to take any further action on that. And an applicant could resubmit the same or substantially similar request at any point when they're ready to move on and start that process again. And then lastly, trying to cover all the bases, we did include a motion to deny. That is not the staff's recommendation. However, we wanted to make sure that we included all of the available options for the Planning Commission to consider. So that is what we prepared in the report. Our staff's recommendation tonight, based on communications with Ms. Souls, the applicant, is to continue the site plan review for 8121 First Street to December 4th at the regular Planning Commission meeting at 6:30 p.m. Ms. Souls, is there anything else that you wanted to add to my explanation?
Just that we have been in conversation with Public Works, and it's been an ongoing conversation and looking forward to having a better plan at the December 4th meeting. It would be my preference. I mean, hopefully we can get this turned around very quickly and be at the November, if that would be more preferential to the planning commission. I understand that there are some things stacking up at the end of the year. So if that's a possibility to say at the next meeting, if we're prepared for the November, if we submit, I am unclear on if it needs to be done by the end of this week in order to be at the November Planning Commission. I don't have that date, but if that is possible for us to get you the information in plenty of time for review for the November, that would be an option for us, if not the December 4th meeting. So, thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Souls. Planning Commission have any questions?
Any questions, anybody?
I just had one question regarding the November 4th meeting, I believe, or is that December? What does that schedule look like? And is there, I mean, is it a very, I don't know what you think might be coming up at that time, so. With 6th, would that be would it be appropriate to fit this piece in, or you felt there was time and it wasn't too heavily packed so far?
Well, thank you for the question and appreciation to Ms. Souls for making that request, and we understand that desire. Traditionally, what we've seen in tabling items to a later date is we've approached those with best of intentions to bring those items back as quickly as possible and keep things moving along. And invariably what we've been running into is that we don't have all the information coordinated to have time for back and forth with applicants to make sure that what we're bringing to the commission or board of trustees is completely vetted. And in those instances, we've brought those items back with recommendations to approve subject to conditions because they kind of got rushed at the end and we didn't have enough time to get everything completely ironed out. Our staff is always interested in moving things forward as quickly as possible and not leaving an application out there longer than is necessary. But I do believe it would be prudent, knowing the other applications that are currently also in review and the conversations and coordination going on those other projects, budget and other things that are going on for town staff. It does not feel realistic to me from my standpoint to have all that coordination that needs to take place to feel confident recommending approval with no conditions and bring that back in time to make the November 6th meeting. So respectfully, my staff recommendation would be to table to December 4th, knowing that we will be communicating and coordinating with the applicant to address all of the remaining items that we need to recommend a full approval.
Okay, any other questions?
No, sir.
Okay, motion to approve, postpone, deny, any of the above.
I move to postpone the site plans for 8121 First Street to the regular planning commission meeting of December 4th, 2023.
Second. Roll call, please, Patty.
Commissioner Shalay,
Yes.
Moyer,
Yes.
Knack,
Yes.
Carmen,
Yes.
McCaffrey,
Yes.
Whitehouse,
Yes.
Sarda.
Yes. All right. Thank you, Ms. Souls. Okay, next. Back to it.
Chairman, you have no other action items. The next item of business was communications, and staff included a written report in the packet.
Next, we'll do communications, Mr. Byrd. Thank you for that.
Thank you. I didn't want to leave you hanging there. Thank you, Chairman. In your packet, staff included our quarterly report for building permit and lot inventory. There is not a significant change from the last quarterly report. Only a few additional housing permits have been issued in that third quarter. But it does include the most current updates on those totals. And I'm happy to answer any questions regarding the residential permit side of things. I think one thing I wanted to call to your attention was a little bit different from the last quarter report is the table on page 10 of 11. On that, there's a chart at the bottom that had, in the prior version, it had shown just the orange or gold line for the approved single-family platted lots. And in this report, we've added a reasonably expected line that's significantly lower. It's lower by 317 permits, which is the same number if you go to the table above. It's Sundance Phase 1A, 1B, Phase 2, and Phase 3. That's 317 lots. The reason we did that was for projection purposes and budget revenue projections. The subdivision for Sundance is platted and approved, but there's no infrastructure there. And the owner of that property has recently put a center pivot irrigation system on that property. Staff's understanding is that that's got a 5-year commitment on the irrigation to the farmer leasing that for ag purposes. So reasonably, we're not expecting any permits to be issued there in at least a 5-year period. And beyond that, we don't have any certainty. So we projected that second dashed line just to illustrate what we think is realistic in the same time frame for that particular subdivision. So that was a little different that I wanted to call to your attention since we hadn't talked about it before. And then concluding the report here, we did include the page 11. It's a high-level summary of commercial lot inventory. And this was based on direction from the Planning Commission at a prior meeting that we said we would bring this back. We've put together, we have a longer table with more information in it, but this is the summary. We broke it down by commercial zoning and the number of acres total, the number of acres that are buildable, meaning it's platted and has infrastructure to it, and then the lots that are platted and lots that are buildable. So we know that this is high level. We've put it together as a starting point. We would expect if we come up with a better way to present this information, or if the Planning Commission has any direction or suggestions for how we can improve this type of data to report back to you and track, we're happy to do that. At this point, we would encourage some discussion. And if there's any suggestions for what you'd like staff to look at, we'd be happy to bring that back.
Can you clarify the last line of the planned unit development? 5 acres total, buildable acres 0, lots platted 2, buildable 0.
Sure, I'm happy to. The planned unit development zoning in place currently is 2 2.5 acre lots in Sage Meadows second subdivision. The properties were part of there's 103 residential units platted in Sage Meadows second, and along Highway 1 on the north end next to the sod field, there's 2 parcels that were identified as commercial units that would transition from the residential neighborhoods north to what is expected and contemplated in the comprehensive plan as commercial development. So that planned unit development was utilized to create the transition between single family residential and commercial. And so that's the only property that is currently zoned planned unit development. We do have another application in the review process that is pending final decisions for Sage Farms annexation and the Village at Sage Farms annexation that are both identified as a proposed planned unit development, but they have not yet been approved, so we didn't want to put them on this list just yet.
Thank you.
Of course.
Yeah, I had a similar question on the first line, but I see where the differentiation is. The first 2 columns are acres, the last 2 columns are plots or lots, lots rather. But what I'm trying to wrap my head around is total acres 6.1, buildable 5.5. The simple math would tell us that there's less or maybe a little more than an acre left to be dealt with there, but it'd be helpful to understand. I know you can't do lots because you can't predict what's going to happen on the property, but it'd be helpful to know what's available, right? For future development.
Everything on this list would be available for future
Everything
development.
is. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And maybe it would help to explain kind of the process that staff used to put this together. And I think Commissioner Carmen's question is right on point, and I just didn't explain it very well. But what we put into this table are, these are vacant lots. They're currently not developed. They're available either via market listings with a brokerage, or they may not be listed, but we know that there's nothing there and there is potential there. So what we've identified are all of the vacant lands in the town limits that do not have any construction approved for them.
So lots and acres are two different units of measure,
Mhm.
right? So there's 0.6 acres available between the total and buildable. Total is 6.1 acres, and
Mhm.
of that, 11 of those lots have been platted. It'd be interesting to know how many acres that is, so that we're comparing apples to apples. Because right now, I'm looking at lots platted and lots buildable, but I don't know how many acres that is. You know what I mean?
So you're looking for a column that would be something like acres buildable?
Yeah, to use the
I mean,
same
or-
unit of measure across, right? Because the first thing I did looking at it was I said, okay, 6.1 is my total, but I'm looking at 11
Mhm.
platted, 9 buildable, but I don't know how much of that 6.1 that is.
Yeah. So can I throw out another kind of way of looking at it? And I'm gonna move down to the industrial zone property line item. So townwide, there's nearly 60 acres of property zoned industrial that's available for development purposes. 0 is buildable currently because there's no infrastructure in the ground to support a building permit.
Yep.
Only 2 lots are platted, so they're a 35 acre and a 25 acre, or whatever I'm going from memory, but they're 2 large lots, zoned industrial and vacant. When those they're platted as one large lot. We don't expect it to be one large lot forever. It could be subdivided, so we don't know how many additional lots that could consist of.
Yeah, and I get that. And that's a great example, right? Because even in that example there, almost all of that 60 acres is platted. But I only know that from the conversation, not from looking at
Mhm.
this chart.
Yeah. So I'm happy to add more columns to this to refine the level of detail, or would it also benefit, maybe it's both, to provide some additional explanation as to how the numbers were generated, or kind of the caveats for what we're looking at, what goes into which column?
I mean, I'd be interested in other commissioners' thoughts, but I mean, from my perspective, just that one example that you gave, 2 platted lots is consuming a big chunk of that 60 acres. And I know that won't always be true because a
Mhm.
platted lot's going to change, over time potentially, right? They're not all
Right?
considered the same. So to me, having that acre reference, even on the lots, would be helpful. So whether it's a footnote, another column, whatever, right, is helpful from my perspective, but interested in other commissioners.
I think that if you want to add a column, that makes sense to me, to satisfy that. But I feel like as we see this more regularly, I don't know that there's necessarily a need to task you all with footnotes.
I'd settle for a color-coded map.
On the wall.
You had nothing to say tonight.
That's all I got. That's it.
Okay, thank you for the feedback. Are there other suggestions?
I appreciate seeing this, so thank you for putting it together.
Of course. I'll throw out there too I wouldn't say that Wellington has experienced it in my time here in the last 6 years, but other communities that I've worked in my career, commercial properties are often platted and replatted and change a lot more than residential does, because you've got businesses that come and go. They have different needs. A lot of times a developer will plat commercial land, kind of trying to guess what types of clients they might be interested in attracting. And then invariably they find out, gosh, I needed to make that plat or that lot 20 feet wider. So I want to do a replat to accomplish that. And so the commercial acreages and lots do change a lot more so than other types of development. And so that could be a harder metric to track over time as things change. Then are you looking back and comparing apples to apples? But With that explanation, I think it's something that we can certainly take a look at and provide some additional detail on what's available. I would, as we dig into that and look and see what's possible, I would also make the request that staff's not just becoming another brokerage listing agent, doing a lot by lot basis for what's available and what's on there. Essentially to put this together, this was myself and Patty Lundy, and we drove around town, looked at what was vacant. We looked at the maps and went to the county assessor's office and put this together based on, just put together a spreadsheet of what are all the vacant parcels and tabulated the acreages. So it's certainly not complicated to do, but something that we don't want to have to redo a whole lot.
Can I make a suggestion? I know,
Go ahead.
you can
You're
handle it.
you anyway.
What if the column just said the lot range size minimum and then the maximum in that category? Just so then there's a range. And then that's it. And my only thought is and I'm only speaking for me personally, I have occasion to interact with people who are curious what's available up here that may be considering wanting to move their business up here, and just to have that general idea of, oh yeah, you want to bring a warehouse, we actually have, there's a potential for that. And let me direct you to Cody Bird instead of just saying, oh, let me send you to Cody, who might have time to answer his phone to say, no, we don't actually have anything available.
Well, we'll always take those requests as well.
Right. But maybe that gives that general overview. Would that be helpful? Okay, I'm done.
No, there's no point now. I was just gonna say, if we were in a little hotter of a commercial market and this was changing more frequently and things were moving faster, it might be interesting to see those metrics change, but this could look the exact same next quarter. So my recommendation would just be, don't put too much extra time in it, considering what you all have to deal with already. I think high level referencing material is good, personally.
Well, we'll take the variety of comments and see what we can do to present some options, and we'll use limited resources to do that.
Yeah, and I agree with Commissioner Moyer's point too, that it's not an exercise in just crunching numbers for the sake of crunching data, right?
Thank you. Appreciate all the feedback.
Anything else on the lot inventory? Anyone want to share any experiences from the state planning conference this past weekend? Can you keep it brief?
Okay, I will keep it super brief.
If we want to go sometime.
Well, first and foremost, I just want to thank the town of Wellington and thank our great planner here for extending the invitation. I learned a ton. I went all 3 days. I learned I'm glad I don't live in Colorado Springs, and I love our small town. But actually it was very educational. Some stuff wasn't applicable to where we live, but I met a lot of great people. I have a greater appreciation for the amount of work that goes into our planning department. So thank you, Paul, as well, and Patty. But I think I would highly recommend the next time there's an opportunity to go, just because you hear a lot of different perspectives, and it ranges from fairly conservative and very data driven to idealistic and not all that realistic, depending on who's talking. So I enjoyed it. And I got to hang out with our chairman and our planner, so it was great.
Yeah, I think for me, it was just good perspective. We get entrenched in what we deal with in this town, and not, I don't get out that much and talk to other planners, fault or not, but it kind of forced you into a situation where you had to hear about other situations in other towns and other municipalities, large and small. And it gives you some appreciation that things are not all that different, regardless of where you live. Big or small, better or worse, it's really not all that different. So good perspective, and yes, definitely appreciation for planning staff, 100%.
Thank you.
Right. Yeah. Go next year. It's in Loveland next year, right?
Yeah, I was just gonna share that next year the Colorado State Planning Conference is in Loveland. So makes the whole commuting accommodations thing maybe a little bit easier, where maybe more of you can attend. So we'll definitely look for that opportunity. The state conference is usually October, or late September, depending on how the calendar falls. So we'll be looking for those opportunities to hopefully send some more commissioners. Being as close as it is, we might be able to send all the commissioners for a day or two, depending on how the calendar falls and availability. I'll also throw a quick plug out there. The National Planning Conference in 2025 will be hosted in Denver, which would also be an opportunity to attend. So a little bit higher entry fees, but we'll see what we can do. It's another really great experience for planners and for planning commissioners too, to get that national perspective on planning initiatives and see those case examples. So we'll continue to look for opportunities. I admit this kind of fell by the wayside during COVID and we just never got back around to bring it up again until now. So it is something that staff wants to continue to do and provide that opportunity.
Great. Anything else from anyone? Staff included?
No, sir.
You smart. All right, adjourned.